Should be. Well, a very good afternoon to all of you. We are starting dot at 12 noon, and we hope to wind up by 12:45. I have a distinguished set of panelists who are all my good colleagues with whom I have been working in my day-to-day profession as one who is responsible for promoting international collaboration for India in science, technology, and innovation. Now this, as you have heard in the morning, is a very connected world. And today, whatever we do today in this country has ramifications, and similarly the other way around. So international collaboration is not a fashion, but it is a necessity of the day. And all countries now understand globally we need to collaborate rather than compete, because the challenges that we face in the world are really challenges which do not respect geopolitical boundaries, whether it is food, whether it is climate change, energy, water, whatever you talk about. So there is an increasing demand for countries to work together. And therefore, there is also an increasing demand for us as science administrators to come out with new methods, new policies, new programs, new models of how we effectively engage internationally in all spheres of science, technology, and innovation in our living space together on Earth as humankind. The Department of Science and Technology and the Government of India has been very cognizant of this fact, and we do today understand that in order that India is really able to make a perceptible presence and contribute to the international affairs, we have to link and we have to work, we have to collaborate with nations both around and across the globe. We have taken several steps in order to do that. And one of the most exciting models that we have created is called the Global Innovation Technology Alliance, called GITA. When we started collaborating with some countries, we realized that within the government, we did not have a mechanism to support industries from where actually techno-entrepreneurship and innovations could happen. And therefore, in hindsight, we realized that we need to create a platform that would allow us to engage in industrial R&D on an international level. This is an R&D and innovation where industry takes a lead with academia able to participate. It's the other way around, mind it. Most of the research that DST funds is led by academia, whereas the programs supported under GITA are programs that are actually led by industry with a window for academia to participate. So the model is very different. The government for the first time has engaged with the industry association, the sister industry association called CII, through which this GITA has been created as a not-for-profit entity for enabling Indian industries, startups, and entrepreneurs to cooperate internationally in the sphere of innovation and techno-entrepreneurship. And through the model of GITA, we are now engaged with 7 or 8 different countries across the world. We also have exclusive binational bodies that promote international collaboration, that promote innovation, like the Indo-US Science and Technology Forum, the Indo-German Science and Technology Center, the Indo-French Center for Promotion of Advanced Research, and all of them are getting in a big way in the innovation space. So together, DST, DBT, and other science ministries are working very actively with all our colleagues here on the dais to see that happen. But before I hand it over to our colleagues to speak, I just wanted to tell you a couple of things as to what India brings to the table in terms of innovation. And this is a very different paradigm which India has. As most of you have heard in the morning, we are not looking at the process of innovation. We are looking at the purpose of innovation. How really we can make affordable, accessible, and available products, which is reachable to a large section of society in order to meet their unmet needs. In other words, we are looking at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of coming out with products which are really cost effective. And that is the value proposition which India brings in. All of you know we are in a resource crunched situation. And most of our minds, Indians, are optimized to of using as less resources as possible. And this less input in resources will also lead into low cost input in terms of products. And that is what the value chain India brings in. So working with highly innovative economies, which are small in size, is a good model for India to look at those technologies across the world, work with those technologies in partnership, and really, engineer those technologies in a way that it is more optimized in terms of cost. And that is a value proposition which India brings to the table. And such products are not only beneficial for the country, but could go to the developing world, including Africa. And currently we have launched a major program with Africa where FICCI is our partner on technology transfer. There are more than 300 technologies which African countries have identified, which is of their direct need and use, which can actually be transferred from India to these African countries through what I call a process of incremental innovation, or what I call adaptation and adoption. So these are various models that India is looking into, and in my international portfolio that I interact with most of the countries, with 44 countries we are having currently collaboration. Innovation is an important sphere, and today you will hear from a set of panelists that I have with me. All of them are engaged with India or working with India, and they see what value that they see in working with India, what are the constraints that they see in the system, and how best really we can collaborate to make this ecosystem of entrepreneurship and innovation to grow. So with those few introductory words, let me briefly introduce my panelists. Robert Kemp, he is the Deputy Minister, Economic Environment, Science and Technology in the US Embassy in India. Robert will speak about the US-India Innovation Program. Some of it was outlined yesterday by Mr. George Sibley in the morning in the inaugural function. My dear friend and colleague, Dr. Nafis Mia, he is the Director of Research Councils of UK India, and we have again a very thriving program on innovation, entrepreneurship, and science and technology, and which we are looking at further increasing and bringing in the strand of translation. The relationship which is divided into people, project, and translation has a great emphasis on this aspect of innovation. Denis Dambois is the first Counselor and Head of Science and Technology of the European Union. India is one of those few countries who have very long-standing cooperation with the EU and have a series of activities that we are doing, which started with actually first addressing research problems and now moved into addressing grand challenges that together with the EU that we are trying to address and come out with solutions. And of course, with Inga Midtkan, she is the Science and Technology Council of the Royal Norwegian University. Again, Norway is one of our very, very active countries with whom we are cooperating in various fields of science and technology, especially those related to environment, climate, sustainable lifestyle, which is very, very pertinent for a country like India. So with this distinguished set of panelists, I'll now request Rob to give his views on how we take this agenda forward. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure and honor to be seated next to Dr. Arbinda Mitra. For those of you who might not know this, Dr. Mitra is an expert on marine geology. So I spent 5 years doing marine geology. So I suppose in a city of 2 million people in New Delhi, you have 2, maybe 15 people who've done marine geology sitting in front of you. One thing I found about marine geology is that it requires spending a lot of time on ships. So after 4 years of that, I found that being on a ship was, as they say, like being in prison with the added possibility of drowning. So that was sort of the end of my science career in strict science. I went back and got a master's degree in international relations and joined the United States Foreign Service. So I'd like to start off just talking about the intersection of science and technology and international relations, just a few thoughts on that. I was previously in 2000 posted to the US Embassy in Beijing, China. While I was there in April of 2000, a US patrol plane, a Chinese fighter plane, collided with the South China Sea, causing a lot of friction between the two countries for quite a while. But it was interesting to watch what had happened at the same time is within the U.S. Embassy in Beijing, we also have a science and technology section that kept on spinning. It kept on engaging with the Chinese government and our academic counterparts. So it was interesting, even though the security side and the political side, other sides were having problems, a lot of friction, our science and technology bilateral efforts continue. Similarly, in Brazil in 2013, I was the political counselor at the U.S. Embassy in Brasilia when some of the Edward Snowden allegations came out. These having to do with allegations of eavesdropping. The result of these allegations, there was again a lot of friction between the United States and Brazil, but mostly on the political and security side. Again, science, technology, and in the case of Brazil, the clean energy track kept on rolling. So it didn't even pause, really. So it's interesting. In some ways, I think science is above and beyond the push and shove of politics a lot of days, partly because scientists, and as Dr. Mitra said, is sort of a boundless thing, is borderless. So moving on to the idea of India, I've just completed a month traveling around India, which impressed on me a couple things, partly because I traveled by train, how big India is, and also how complex it is. I was able to go to Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai. I was in Mumbai last week, Shimla, Calcutta. But particularly in Bangalore and Hyderabad, it was very interesting to see, and this has been going on for 15 years, but the connection between research and development, in particular science and technology, in Hyderabad and Bangalore, going back to the United States, particularly in San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley, and also in Boston, Route 128. So interesting to watch. Technology has been transferred, and a lot of forefront innovation has occurred thanks to this cooperation between India and the United States. But also a lot of personal relations formed. The Indian diaspora, particularly in the Bay Area of San Francisco, is extremely successful. A lot of top CEOs involved in technology there. But also important, science aside, a lot of money was made. So I think one of the things that shows is, again, between the United States and India, like any big countries, there's always going to be friction, even at not only at the strategic level, but down at the at a smaller level, as the Kobre-Ghani incident of 2 years ago showed. But science and technology, I think, will remain as constant and remain as a channel between our two countries, and act as a shock absorber for political friction, which is inevitable. And then my third point is sort of the so what. I think, again, in China and the United States, I saw these two countries, big countries, converging on economic and political systems, but particularly economic. Brazil, also two big countries that are converging in a lot of ways. I see India, particularly over the last 2 years, as coming together and converging on the political side, the economic side. But also, I think what has been built in place on the science and technology side will also help our two countries converge. I see a couple of areas of particular importance. Information technology, which, as I said, has been in place for 15 or 20 years now, but I see that continuing. I think it has a lot of momentum and will continue for another 20, 30, 40 years. And there'll be other hubs besides Hyderabad and Bangalore. I think advanced biotechnology and perhaps the conversion of information technology, computer science, and biotechnology. I think there's a huge amount of progress that can be made there internationally. Aerospace and material science. And then last, solar energy. I think just to mention a few more things about solar energy, I noticed that your Prime Minister last week in Paris kicked off the International Solar Alliance. I think there's a lot of room for transfer of technology and also perhaps venture capital in solar. During my travels over the last month, I met with a lot of investment bankers, and businesses, and heard from a lot of people there's an interest in investing in solar power in India, which makes a lot of sense. It's a chance to provide power to India, perhaps reduce some of the air pollution, and frankly, a chance to make money as well. So there seems to be a lot of impetus and initiative right now on solar energy. With that, I'll end my remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is a very exciting thing that he just made an observation about the Silicon Valley. As most of you would be knowing, almost 37% of the startups in the Silicon Valley is actually done by Asians, predominantly India and China put together. Can we therefore create an Indus Valley, like the Silicon Valley that we have here? And we have all the ingredients to do that, and US-India cooperation would really play a very, very important role in making that happen. Thank you once again. I would now request my dear friend and colleague Nafeez Mia to give the UK perspective, please.
Thank you very much, Aravinda, and thank you for inviting me. It's a great honour to be here. And it's great to see so many young people here, and hopefully we'll have time for a Q&A session. I'll keep my comments therefore brief. But what Aravinda said earlier on about the UK-Indian partnership, we've been very much thinking in the last couple of years or so about how to take the research programs that we've developed and emphasise the translation activity. So we're very much moving into that space. I was quite interested with something that the Secretary of Department of Science and Technology, Professor Ashutosh Sharma, said in his earlier comments, and that was around the relationship between research, education and culture, because I think it's really important that we do understand that it's just not an activity that you can set up systems and processes for and expect innovation to happen. It's very much a cultural thing, and it's about creating an enabling environment. There's 3 C's, which he said, it's got to be challenge-led, focused on something, some big challenge you're trying to achieve. It's got to be collaborative. Collaboration is absolutely essential, so you can't be working in silos. And it's got to be creative. I mean, creativity is absolutely essential. Now, in India, I've been in India 3 years, I can say without any hesitation that there's no dearth of creativity in India, but it's bringing those 3 things together in a way that helps create that innovation, innovative environment, which I think is absolutely essential. Now, Aravinda has very helpfully given us a structure, and I'll just address some of the points that he's given in that structure to help help with our comments. Well, the first thing he's asked is what my assessment is, or our assessment is of India's innovation economy. I think it's very much it's a working process, and everyone will accept that. I think India's got a very proud scientific tradition, some absolutely fantastic scientists in India, in India's recent past and longer term, and important critical steps are being made. Aravinda mentioned GITA, there's BioRack, various other institutions that have been developed that are pushing forward that innovation, the creation of that innovation culture that I was talking about. But what I would add is that it needs sustained investment in science and innovation. And the aspirations have been set out in various 5-year plans. It would be great if those aspirations were reached sooner rather than later, given the nature of the world that we live in. In terms of the challenges, a couple of years ago we had an EU Science and Technology and Innovation Platform meeting on PPP, Public-Private Partnership and Innovation. And one of the issues that came up there was in terms of the Indian university sector, the higher education sector. Now, it's clearly true that the elite institutions have really engaged on the agenda of innovation and engagement with industry, but they represent 2%, 3% of the total higher education institutions in India. What is now needed is that long tail of institutions really need to engage in this agenda very actively. And what do we need to do to encourage that engagement, and what India needs to do in encourage that engagement? And and develop that culture which I was talking about, that creates, that facilitates that environment that enables innovation. And it may be something to do with enabling young people to be, giving them space to be more creative. Fewer people like me, middle-aged men in suits, making all the decisions. So there is, I think, a big challenge there, both at the state level and the national level, to get those other institutions outside from the elite institutions of higher education really engaged on this agenda. Now, India has just been mentioned about Silicon Valley, the West Coast, where a large part of the innovation is driven by Indians. Now, it would be great if the large part of the innovation is driven by Indians in India as well. So how do we get the environment to, so it must be something to do with the environment, the enabling environment. So how, the challenge is, do we get that enabling environment to occur here in India? In terms of UK, what lessons that could be learned from the UK? Well, the UK has recognised, it was recognised very recently in our finance statement, what's called the Autumn Statement, the importance of science and innovation. Absolutely crucial for growth in the future. The UK wants to position itself as a knowledge economy. This year it was in the Global Innovation Index, it was ranked number 2 after Switzerland. Now, that did not happen by accident. That's happened because over the last 10, 15 years there's been a sustained effort to encourage and sometimes cajole universities and higher education to engage with industry partners. And I think one of the key points in that transition was something written by a banker, of all people, called the Lambert Review on Industry Academia Collaboration, because at the time there was a big issue about IPR, intellectual property in the UK, and a lot of universities felt, we're doing all these inventions, but these companies take all the benefit. What do we need to do? So a huge amount of effort was put in making academics and industry partners and everybody involved in the system to understand what is the nature of the relationship, that transaction that goes on between academic and industry and other societal partners, that enables both kind of research, excellent research to happen in universities, that translation piece to happen in partnership with industry, and commercialization to happen. Now, since then, there has been a huge expansion in the UK of academia industry partnership. I think almost every university in the UK now has a science park attached to it. Cambridge University has been particularly successful, but a large part of it was getting that cultural understanding between the academic sector and the Indian industry sector, understanding what each wants and then what each can provide. So something along those lines I think would be most helpful in the Indian context. I'll stop there. Hopefully there's some time for questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Nafis. It's very important what Nafis touched about, the culture. India generally is a risk-averse society. And in order to be a successful innovator, we need to be risk-taking. And this is something what is so common in the Silicon Valley. The other, great thing that we always talk about culturally is, knowledge is to be created and not to be traded. In other words, Lakshmi, Saraswati would not look at Lakshmi, because one was knowledge creator, one was wealth creator. And now we are seeing that change happening, perhaps Saraswati and Lakshmi looking at each other. And that is what needs to be done in the system, I believe. Thank you, Nafis. May I now request Dennis Nambois to give the EU perspective in his working with India. Thank you.
So, thank you. Good morning. So, I am with the European Commission, that is one of these horizontal institutions making the European Union work, so 28 member states, including the UK, for example. And so in addition to the research programs of our member states, and they are very different from each other, there are also the programs run by the European Union as such, and maybe some of you heard about, for example, the framework programs for research. So I'm going to say a few words, but not already on these operational issues. Let me step back for a little while. First by saying that the EU today is still a very major player in the world of research and innovation, despite a population of about 7% of the world's population, which is very little. We are still responsible for about 30% of the scientific output, at least in terms of publications. Of course, in terms of patents, it is already less satisfactory, but still, again, a key player. And we have been learning the hard way, I would say, that innovation is something quite relevant in the sense that 20 years ago, Europe was already very well recognized, very good at producing high-quality research, but was much less efficient at translating these research results into what we could call innovation, so available on the market for the public, for industry, etc. Now the situation has improved already, thanks to a number of policy initiatives. Also, there is certainly more political consciousness about the relevance of these issues. But more concretely, and to take just one example, maybe about 10 years ago, the Commission has defined guidelines, still voluntary, nothing binding, but guidelines regarding university-industry relations, tech transfer, and that kind of thing. Also including some awareness issues. For example, it is not acceptable, I would say, that today, and fortunately, it happens less and less, but 20 years ago in Europe, it was still the case in many places, that you had young university graduates receiving their degree and still not knowing, or just barely knowing, what is a patent, what is a license, etc. And I understand that their main concerns, and your main concerns, because I see many young people in the room, are on science itself. Of course, this is at the core of what we are discussing, but nevertheless, there are a number of peripheral issues that are extremely important, especially in this perspective of innovation that we are now discussing. And certainly looking at policies is always interesting in a cross-border perspective. Looking at what India is doing is extremely enlightening for us, and I'm also certain that India could benefit from some of our past policy initiatives, because the issues are very similar across the globe. Now let me say just a few words about our new framework program for research and innovation, which is called Horizon 2020, because it started last year and will terminate in 2020. It is extremely large, with about 80 billion euros of funding. It is also, and I'm not just here advertising it, I'm telling you how relevant it is for India, and also what we are doing to promote innovation in that context. First, this program is totally open to the world, with a few tiny exceptions. In most of the components of that program, Indian universities, even companies, etc., as well as individual researchers can participate. And there are schemes, by the way, for young researchers, for which funding is still available. And under the last program, the last 7 years, about 1,600 individual Indian researchers have received one of our so-called Marie Curie fellowships, enabling them to come to Europe for about a year to do research. But talking about collaborative research, which is at the heart of our program, again, and this is broadly open, not only to the private sector, and I understand that in India it is quite exceptional that your public funding programs are open to the private sector, but in Europe, at least European Union level, it is the rule, with a few tiny exceptions, because indeed industry is certainly a key player, central player, if we are talking about innovation and translating research results to the market. So we feel they need to be on board already at the research stage. And openness also, as I mentioned, internationally, meaning that any Indian entity, whether it is public or private sector, can be part of a consortium submitting a proposal for one of our collaborative projects. Also in the evaluation criteria, we have basically excellence, scientific excellence, implementation and impact. So impact is taken equally with the other two criteria as a very serious objective which will be assessed in a detailed way by our evaluators when they review the proposals. There is also a need in each project for the participants to develop a plan for the exploitation of the results. So it is not only about making publications, making good science, which again, of course, is at the core of these projects, but it is also about thinking and very concretely about the possible exploitation, implementation of the results. Also something interesting and at a more philosophical level is that this new program, Horizon 2020, is not only focusing on certain areas like nanotechnology, ICT, space, etc., which remain there and important, but there is a whole section, a very large section of this new program, which is focusing on societal challenges. And indeed, the idea here is to define specific objectives to be fulfilled regarding whether it is water treatment or diabetes treatment, could be climate change, green technologies, etc. We define the objective, the challenge, and then the researchers have to come up with proposals. It can be in different ways to reach, to implement, to fulfill this challenge, and hopefully in a multidisciplinary way. In addition to this Horizon 2020 program, there are still other instruments, but I don't have to mention them here. It may confuse you. We may still discuss after this conference. I would just say one word very briefly, because until now I've been talking about, let's say, research policies. There are also a number of non-research policies and initiatives that are quite important to support innovation. First, let's remember that there is not only technological and scientific innovation, there is also a whole field of non-technological innovation. It can be related to business models, etc. And this is, of course, very important in the economic life of any country. The EU is also taking initiatives in that context, and to mention only one, and which has a presence in India, this is why I'm mentioning it. It is called the Enterprise Europe Network, EEN, Enterprise Europe Network. And what is it? It is a very large network based essentially in Europe, but also outside Europe. And again, India is an example outside Europe. The idea is to interconnect SMEs, small companies, whether they are looking for a technological solution or whether they are offering certain technologies. They get in touch with the local center of that network, and this network, of course, is well connected to the other centers of this network worldwide, so that either technology offers or technology requests can be shared in a very effective way, making it possible to interconnect two SMEs which are very distant from each other and which normally would probably have never heard of each other. So this kind of components of the innovation infrastructures, and to which, of course, we can also mention incubators, science parks, and many other things of that kind. This infrastructure is as important as the rest. And again, coming back to awareness, if I can make a wish for India, because there are a number of very positive elements in India that I'm discovering every week. In terms, for example, of university-industry relations, we had this problem in the EU 10 or 20 years ago. We are slowly improving, but in India, I think they are also in the sort of learning curve, and I am a bit surprised, and maybe this is something that could be promoted. As far as I know, in India, there is no association of tech transfer professionals active in universities. We have that in the USA with Autumn, we have that in the UK, in many countries. In Europe there is also a pan-European association of that kind. I think that would be very positive to promote awareness, skills, professionalism in Indian universities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dennis. Really, the European Commission brings in a totally different perspective while we are working on a bilateral level, on a country-to-country level. Here we are talking of a basket of countries through the EU that we engage with. And the approach is very different, as Dennis talked about, looking at top-down approaches of social challenges that we could, as countries together in a multilateral way, work. And especially the policy interventions are very, very important, as you rightly said, and also suggested some of the new things that we should do. And this is a challenge that we constantly look at, how really we bring our policies in place so that it effectively helps in promoting innovation and entrepreneurship, as it is a totally new paradigm for India. Thank you very much, Dennis. May I now request Inger to give her a perspective of working with India and what Norway is doing in the sphere of innovation and entrepreneurship. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for inviting Norway, such a small country, into this group. I will try to make a point about governance and stakeholder involvement. But first I need to say a few words about Norway, because Norway is a very small country. We have 5 million inhabitants. That's 5 million, it's like less than half of Delhi. At the same time, we have a coastline that is more than twice as long as India's coastline, if you take all together.
Yeah.
We have more than 95% of all our companies are SMEs, which means that we are talking about SMEs policy, is our research innovation policy, SME policy. We're also quite expensive country, so we know that we cannot always compete on price, so we need to compete on knowledge. So we focus on knowledge-intensive development, knowledge-intensive innovation. When you read the innovation statistics, the indicator for innovation, Norway is not doing very good. We're far down on the statistics. We would like to be higher up, but we're not very good on radical innovations. We're not good on the big new inventions and commercializing and going international with these big things. But we are good on incremental innovation. We're good on taking new technology in use, bringing them in, getting the best knowledge, the best technology available in the world, and bring it to Norway. We're so small that we have to use this to our advantage in a way, because we have to go international right away. You cannot, the Norwegian market is too small. So, so what have we done? We have focused. We have chosen priority areas that are important for us, that are our competitive advantages, and they're mostly linked to ocean. We focus on marine industry, maritime industry, offshore industry. We use our technology in the oil sector to have offshore windmill parks, for instance, because it's partly the same technology. Then we made strategies within these priority sectors. So of course, in addition to offshore, we have green tech, we have energy, we have health, we have the social, the global challenges. We focus on sustainability. Now, stakeholder involvement. We have made strategies for each of our priority areas, each of our big sectors, involving all academic institutions relevant, involving all relevant stakeholders, involving NGOs, and we have not done it from a top-down perspective. We've done it from a bottom-up perspective, because you need to have the people that need to innovate, the people that need to do the business. They are the ones that know the solutions, and not necessarily the bureaucrats sitting in a ministry or in the research council or Innovation Norway. I once read an interview with, I think it was a Swiss CEO that came to work for a European company in Norway, and he came the first time in Norway, and he had his first all-employee meeting, and he had this passionate speak about the way forward, about the new strategy, how they're going to change the company, how they're going to take market shares, and how they're going to do things. And he expected, in his preparation, he expected afterwards a big applaud, and a big welcome. He didn't get it. He got a question from the audience, from one of his employees. Who decided all that? Who decided all that? Who are you to come and decide what we're going to do? You didn't ask us. You didn't ask us. How do you think that we, that run the company on a daily basis, are going to do all that if you didn't even ask us what we think that we should do to gain these market shares and to go forward? So this is about, now coming into what else we've done, always focusing on that we need to do things together, also being a small country. So we focus on clusters, having these small companies work together. We focus on centers of excellence, centers of expertise run by research institutions, giving them legitimacy to being the best in the country, always, always, always including the best international partners they can get hold of. So so my point was really about governance and stakeholder involvement, because governance is how do you govern a society and processes in such a way that stakeholders are involved and that their voices are heard. This is underestimated, I find, in many, many, many countries, and it's really hard because as a policy officer or as a government position, you need to loosen up a bit of power. You need to hear the other voices, and they're not always, the voices you want to hear, and find a way to work together. And I find that India has this unique position because you have all these countries standing on your doorstep just wanting to collaborate with you and use this in the most strategic way to pick the best technology in the best competence wherever you find it in the world and bring it to India, because everybody is just eager to come and work with India and be part of this very promising development that everybody is waiting for. And you have hungry people, hungry in the sense that, eager with drive to do something. Entrepreneurship in Norway has been quite low. We have very low unemployment rate, so there has been no time. People haven't had time to be entrepreneurs. So now a lot of people are letting go. Every week in Norway there are a lot of people, in the news that this company has to let go so and so many people, and the oil companies are really letting go a lot of people. And entrepreneurship finally is blossoming. Finally, there's a big application to entrepreneurship still, because you're under pressure and people have time to develop their ideas. And then it's the time for government to intervene and to support the driving forces and appreciate the driving forces you find bottom up. I'll end by that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you indeed, Inger. Howsoever small a country is, each of it has its own value proposition. And I think India need to learn a lot from Norway. As you just talked about, you have perhaps one of the largest coastline. So does India, has 7,600 kilometers of coastline. Almost 350 million people live around the coast. And the Prime Minister in his last few months have been constantly talking about looking at what he calls about developing a blue economy, ushering a blue economy, where he talks about the ocean as the future of all resources and economic growth. And I think there is a lot that we can learn from Norway, what you talked about, the way that you have addressed that. And also the fact you talked about the process of entrepreneurship and innovation needs to be ingrained in the system. We as a nation, as I told you, are more hands-on, are more minds-on rather than hands-on. And we really need to immerse our people into, doing things, not simply, excelling in exams, which we do very well, but really immerse our hands in doing things, and that is what brings a lot of changes. So I think all these countries really bring new perspective, new ideas, new models, policies that are very, very important. Each of them have unique policies of how to promote this whole ecosystem of entrepreneurship and innovation. It's an exciting phase for India, where we see a lot of new technology startups coming up. Every year the numbers are growing. Many of our young graduates, instead of taking a white-collar job, is now embarking upon the companies of their own. And I think in this whole process, in this whole ecosystem, the more we collaborate, the more we cooperate, we would avoid actually making mistakes, which other countries have done, and learn from them, and therefore leapfrog in this whole process. We really appreciate your time. All of you are great partners. I know how I'm working with all of you. As you said, as you want to work with India, we also look forward to work closely with all of you in making this journey a really fruitful one, to make the globe as in totality a better place to live for humankind. Thank you once again. Unfortunately, I have to rush out, but there is a luxury of lunch. I think you can interact with the panelists and ask them questions when you meet them over lunch. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, same here. Thanks. Yeah, sure, we will.
Uh,
Right now, please. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Dr. Mitra. I would request Dr. Mitra to present mementos to
Sure.
the distinguished
Sure.
panelists, keeping in line with the FICCI tradition.
Sure. Start with you.
To Mr. Mia,
Thank you.
to Mr. Robert, Mr. Demboyes, Ms. Midkindale,